Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Tonight I've got some chilling stories that were sent in by viewers just like you. These are not for the faint of heart, so get comfortable and let's dive into the darkness together. Buckle up because these stories are a wild ride. Let's get started. Sarah woke to the sound of her alarm clock blaring. Groaning, she hit snooze and rolled over. It was a Tuesday, just another day in the daily grind. Except when she opened her eyes, something felt off. The light filtering in through her blinds seemed wrong. Instead of the warm glow of a sunrise, it had a sickly greenish tinge. Shaking off the strange feeling, Sarah got out of bed and went about her usual morning routine, but the unsettling feeling persisted. As she moved into the kitchen to start coffee, she glanced out the window. The trees in her backyard, usually lush and green, were withered and black, their branches twisted into unnatural shapes. Suddenly the phone rang, making her jump. The caller ID showed her mother's number. "Mom," she answered, her voice trembling slightly. The old Victorian house had stood for over a century, its bones creaking with every gust of wind. The walls seemed to whisper secrets of the past, and the floors groaned under the weight of history. Mark, having just moved in, dismissed the noises as settling sounds. He was excited about the new chapter in his life, eager to transform the old house into a cozy home. He was more focused on unpacking and making the place his own. Each room held potential, and he spent hours arranging furniture and hanging pictures, trying to breathe new life into the aged structure. One evening, while searching for his toolbox, Mark ventured into the basement for the first time. He had been putting off this task, knowing the basement was likely to be the most neglected part of the house. The air down there was thick with the scent of mildew, and dust motes danced in the single bare bulb hanging precariously from the ceiling. The atmosphere was heavy, almost suffocating, and the dim light cast eerie shadows on the walls. Cobwebs clung to his face as he navigated through the maze of forgotten furniture and boxes. Each step he took seemed to disturb the silence, making the basement feel even more alive with unseen presences. He found his toolbox tucked away in a corner, covered in a thick layer of dust. It was as if it had been waiting for him, untouched for years, a relic of the past. As he bent to pick it up, he noticed something peculiar. A glint of metal caught his eye, something that didn't belong among the old, forgotten items. A small wooden door, barely noticeable beneath the stairs, seemed out of place. It was almost as if it had been deliberately hidden, a secret waiting to be discovered. Curiosity piqued, Mark brushed away the cobwebs, revealing a rusty handle. The door looked ancient, its wood weathered and worn, and the handle felt cold and rough under his fingers. He hesitated for a moment, a sense of unease settling over him. The basement had always felt off, but this door added a new layer of mystery and dread. Ignoring the voice in the back of his mind, Mark gripped the handle and pulled. The door resisted at first, as if it hadn't been opened in decades, but then it gave way with a loud creak. The door creaked open with a groan, revealing a set of rickety wooden stairs leading down into darkness. The sight sent a chill down his spine, but his curiosity pushed him forward. Taking a deep breath, Mark grabbed the hanging bulb and cautiously made his way down the stairs. Each step was a test of his resolve, the darkness below seeming to swallow the light. The steps groaned under his weight, each one seeming to whisper a warning. The further he descended, the more oppressive the air became, thick with the scent of earth and decay. The air grew noticeably colder, sending a shiver down his spine. It was as if he had crossed into another world, one where the past lingered and shadows held secrets. As his foot touched the cold, damp earth floor, he heard it. A soft, almost inaudible whisper coming from the darkness ahead. The sound was faint but unmistakable, like a voice carried on the wind. His heart pounded in his chest as he slowly turned towards the source of the sound. The darkness seemed to close in around him, and he felt a presence, something watching him from the shadows. The antique silver locket, with its intricate engravings and tarnished patina, seemed to whisper tales of forgotten times. It was a gift from Emily's grandmother, a woman known for her love of all things vintage and unusual. Emily, though not particularly superstitious, couldn't shake off the feeling that there was something off about the locket. Her grandmother had always been a bit eccentric, her house filled with strange and wonderful objects collected from her travels around the world. But there was a sadness in her eyes when she gifted Emily the locket, a sense of foreboding that lingered long after she left her grandmother's house. "It's beautiful, Grandma," Emily had said, trying to sound more enthusiastic than she felt. The locket felt strangely cold in her hand, its weight heavier than it looked. Her grandmother smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It's been in our family for generations," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Be careful with it, Emily. Some things are best left undisturbed." Emily, dismissing her grandmother's words as the ramblings of an old woman, tossed the locket into her jewellery box, where it lay forgotten for weeks. It wasn't until she was searching for something to wear to a friend's costume party that she stumbled upon it again. Rain lashed against the windshield, blurring the desolate highway ahead. The relentless downpour seemed to intensify with every passing minute, making visibility almost impossible. John squinted, trying to make out the road through the heavy downpour. His eyes strained against the darkness, the rain creating a shimmering curtain that distorted everything beyond the glass. He was running late, his usual route home closed due to construction, forcing him onto this unfamiliar, winding back road. The detour signs had led him deeper into the countryside, far from the well-lit streets he was accustomed to. The rhythmic swish of the wipers and the low hum of the engine were the only sounds breaking the eerie silence that enveloped him. Each swipe of the wipers seemed to echo in the confined space of the car, a monotonous reminder of the storm outside. He glanced at the clock on the dashboard, its green digits mocking him in the darkness. Midnight. The realization that he should have been home hours ago gnawed at him, adding to his growing anxiety. He should have been home hours ago. The stress of the day weighed heavily on him, and the thought of his family waiting, worried, made his grip on the steering wheel tighten. As he rounded a sharp bend, the headlights flickered, momentarily plunging him into darkness. The sudden loss of light made his heart race, and he instinctively slowed down, his eyes darting to the dashboard. He cursed under his breath, tapping the steering wheel in frustration. The old car had been reliable for years, but tonight it seemed to be failing him when he needed it most. The storm was getting worse, and the old car was struggling to cope. The engine's hum turned into a strained whine, and the wipers barely kept up with the deluge. Suddenly, a figure loomed out of the darkness, illuminated for a fleeting moment by a bolt of lightning. The brief flash revealed a shadowy silhouette, standing motionless in the middle of the road. John slammed on the brakes, his heart leaping into his throat. The tires screeched against the wet asphalt, and he felt the car fishtail slightly before coming to a halt. The car skidded on the wet asphalt, coming to a stop just inches from the figure. His hands shook as he gripped the steering wheel, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. He could barely make out the silhouette of a woman standing by the side of the road. Her long hair plastered to her face, her clothes soaked through. She seemed out of place, a ghostly figure in the relentless storm. She raised a hand, her pale face a mask of desperation in the flickering light. Her eyes, wide with fear, locked onto his, silently pleading for help. John hesitated, unsure of what to do next, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The campfire crackled merrily, casting flickering shadows that danced among the trees, creating an almost hypnotic effect that drew everyone's gaze. The scent of pine needles and wood smoke filled the air, creating an atmosphere of tranquility that settled over the group of friends gathered around the flames. It was a perfect night, the kind that made you forget all your worries and just live in the moment. They had been planning this camping trip for months, a much-needed escape from the hustle and bustle of city life. Each of them had been looking forward to this break, a chance to reconnect with nature and with each other. Emily, eager to put some distance between herself and a recent breakup, had readily agreed to join her friends, hoping that the fresh air and natural beauty would help mend her broken heart. She'd always found solace in nature, and this trip seemed like the perfect remedy. As the stars twinkled above, painting the night sky in a canvas of celestial wonder, they shared stories, laughter echoing through the stillness of the woods. The camaraderie was palpable, each story bringing them closer together, each laugh a balm for their souls. But as the night wore on, the mood shifted. The once comforting darkness began to feel oppressive, the shadows more menacing. The stories took on a darker tone, tales of unexplained occurrences and eerie encounters sending shivers down their spines. What started as harmless fun began to feel like a prelude to something sinister. "Did you hear that?" Sarah, her eyes wide with fear, whispered, breaking the silence that had fallen over the group. Her voice was barely audible, yet it cut through the night like a knife. A low growl, barely audible above the crackling fire, seemed to emanate from the darkness beyond the circle of light. It was a sound that didn't belong, a sound that sent a chill down their spines. "It's probably just an animal, Sarah," Mark said, trying to sound reassuring, though he couldn't shake off the feeling of unease that had settled over him. His words did little to comfort the group, the fear in his eyes betraying his calm facade. He strained to hear, his senses on high alert. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig seemed amplified in the stillness of the night. The growl came again, closer this time, followed by the distinct sound of branches snapping under something large moving through the undergrowth. It was unmistakable now. Something was out there, and it was getting closer. Their laughter died in their throats, replaced by a palpable tension that hung heavy in the air. The once cosy campfire now felt like a fragile barrier against the encroaching darkness. "Maybe we should get in the tent," Emily suggested, her voice trembling slightly. The idea of the thin fabric walls providing any real protection was laughable, but it was better than sitting exposed in the open. She couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched, their every move scrutinized by unseen eyes. It was a primal fear, one that gripped her heart and refused to let go. As if on cue, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night, echoing through the trees. It was a sound of pure terror, one that froze them in place and made their blood run cold. Thanks for joining me tonight. I hope these stories left you with chills. Remember, these were sent in by people just like you. Stay safe, and remember, sometimes the real horror is closer than you think. See you in the next video.